Today's episode is brought to you by Patreon. If you're interested in supporting the show, go to patreon.com/JoshuaVelas and become a $2 backer today and get early access to the new episodes. I'll be leaving a link in the description down below, but for now, on to today's episode. You're listening to the Augmented Experience podcast. I'm your host, as usual, Joshua Velas. I'm a student, musician, and a gamer at heart. Join me as I sit down every week to talk about all the latest news in the technology, business, and video game world. I hope you guys enjoy.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. My name is Joshua Velas. I'm your host as usual, and obviously, welcome back to the show. Today's episode 263 of the show, and before we get started, we're just going to do a little bit of house quick around here, because it only makes sense that we do some house cleaning, because why not? I do want to say thank you guys for coming back and listening to today's episode. It does mean a lot to me. You guys constantly take time of days to download these episodes, to share these episodes, to constantly keep letting me know how you feel, whether you like my stupid face or not, or my opinions or not. At the end of the day, I greatly appreciate it, and I greatly appreciate you. So thank you guys so much for coming back and listening. I do also want to say that this week was kind of straightforward of what to talk about, because while I was thinking about it in the back of my head, I was like, what do I want to talk about this week? And then I realized there is a giant elephant in the room, and it's only fair that we talk about it because it's also consumed a fair bit of my time. And probably after this episode goes live, I'm most likely going to be playing it. So you guys can probably assume what we're going to talk about. We're talking about PalWorld. Also, as a side note as well, if you guys aren't following the Instagram page, you can go hit me up on Instagram. This is usually where I like to do all the polls. And same thing like that. I do all the polls on there to get people's feedback to see what do they want me to talk about and just gauge responses from there. But I feel like this week was pretty straightforward, if I'm being honest with you, in terms of what we're talking about, because it seems like this is just an overnight success, blowing up online, and is dominating the conversation right now, especially in the video game industry. And it does raise a lot of concerns in regards to, buzzwords, things like AI and things like plagiarism. And, well, if you guys are familiar with PalWorld, the big comparison that is being had with Pokemon and the Pokemon Company. So it only makes sense that we just have a conversation about it here today on the show, because there's a lot of stuff to digest. So let's start with a little bit of background context if you guys aren't aware. So PalWorld is a game that recently just came out on Steam not too long ago, about 4 days ago. And in the span of 4 days, this game has now hit, at the time of this recording, over 6 million in sales. This is across Xbox and PC. And it is now the second highest all-time peak player count in Steam history, already surpassing games like Counter-Strike 2, Lost Ark, Dota 2, Cyberpunk, Elden Ring, New World, Hogwarts Legacy, Baldur's Gate, just to name a few. And it is currently sitting at an all-time peak of 1,853,216 people. That's a lot of bodies just on Steam alone. And this, again, as we talked about, this thing has already surpassed things like Baldur's Gate, Elden Ring, Cyberpunk, like all these other games. And yes, it's still a little bit more than halfway there to reaching the true all-time peak, which is PUBG, because at the time when PUBG was a played game, or a paid game at this point, it was sitting at 3.2 million. Granted, it is clearly not that anymore. Let's just be honest here, even though it is free to play, but the player plays has died down a little bit. But if we're looking at, say, PUBG being removed, which by a technicality case it can be because it is a free-to-play game, then yes, it would be the number one all-time peak right now. But aside from the logistical things out of the way, why has this game blown up online? And that's a weird thing to say, because nobody was truly expecting this game, if we're just being transparent here. Nobody can sit here and tell me with a straight face, yeah, this game, I was waiting on this game had my excitement. No, nobody was. This game was showed off last year at the Summer Game Fest, and then lo and behold, it finally comes out in early access, and it just blows up online and piques everyone's interest. It is being played by people all over the world right now. It is being played on Twitch, YouTube. Everyone's talking about this game. People who have never touched this style of game before, which, lo and behold, is a pocket monster collecting game. If you don't know, pocket monsters is the original name of Pokemon. But the fact that this monster collecting game is blowing up online, and of course, it is going to draw comparisons with Pokemon, because let's be real, what else are you going to do in Pokemon? You're going to catch these little buggers. And in this case, they're called pals. And if you've seen any of the gameplay, which I'm assuming you probably have, a lot of the commentary, or the meme in this case, is that this game is just Pokemon with guns. And on a surface level, yes, that would be true. But when you're really playing the game and you're actually in there and you're seeing a lot of the gameplay, you realize it's a lot more than that. What do I mean? A lot of the comparisons that can probably be had for PalWorld, especially that I've had the chance to play it, I'm currently about 11 hours in, because I only started playing it on Monday is when I actually got to put some time into it. Sunday I had a little bit of time into it, but Monday was probably like the majority. When you're looking at this game holistically, it does remind you a lot of games like Ark, and then same thing with Pokemon in the sense of capturing monsters. But it definitely is an interesting take on the survival genre, because in many ways it's not as aggressive as games like Ark or any of those survival style games. Like you could say even Minecraft with resource collecting and things like that. It almost seems like this game is just like a giant like mosh pit or a mixing pot of ideas that is weird, but it works, if that makes sense. From my experience of playing the game, yes, I will also be transparent. I am running it on my PC, and my PC is a fairly high-end rig. If you're anything familiar with PC parts, I'm using a 7950 X3D as my CPU, big old 16-core, 32-thread GPU or CPU. I'm using 64 gigs of RAM. I'm running it on a 7900 XT, Red Devil version. So I'm running it on a pretty beefy PC that can clearly max out this game and run it well, but also transparency, it is early access, so there are some optimizations needing to be had. I haven't run this on my Series X, but I am interested in double dipping to play with my friends on there. But I will also give you guys fair warning that the Xbox version seems to be behind the PC version in terms of updates and in terms of quality, in terms of dealing with all the bugs and stuff like that. So I highly recommend, if you are interested in trying this out, please try it out on the Steam version. I do recommend it more than anything. The Steam version I feel like is the superior version as of right now, but keep in mind, again, this game is in early access, so things can and will change, especially with the meteoric success of this game. I'm not going to be surprised that this game is going to do well and get updated, and we're going to see a lot of changes going forward. But let's talk about some of those concerns, though, because it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Because it sounds like it right now, we're just glazing this thing up and that it's all sunshine, it's all rainbows, this game is a perfect game, blah, blah, blah. It's clearly not. Let's be real. There are two major issues that people are having with this game currently. And let's tackle the first one, which is the calls of plagiarism online by apparently Twitter lawyers that have just come out of nowhere and seem to be under the impression that this game is going to be taken down for plagiarism, for violating copyright laws, that everything is too similar. And if we're being objective here and being honest, there is no hardcore firm evidence that any copywriting or plagiarism has been done, because again, these are very serious allegations that we are throwing around, and we need to be honest here, guys. Yes, as a Pokemon fan, I can see the resemblance, I can see the similarities with a lot of the designs. I'm not stupid. I've had the privilege to go through a lot of the Pokemon games, because for me, my earliest memory of playing Pokemon was Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald, and Fire Red and Leaf Green as well. But for me, yes, I do see the resemblance. I do see a lot of those designs and a lot of the inspirations coming from those Pokemon. I'm not going to lie to y'all. Let's just be real here. There are inspirations. But to say that this violates some copyright laws, plagiarism, it clearly doesn't, because one, this is the whole point that people have had specifically about Nintendo and the Pokemon Company. They don't play around in the courtroom, bro. Let's be realistic here. These are probably two companies, because remember, the Pokemon Company is separate from Nintendo. They are not the same company. These are two companies that do not mess around in the courtroom. If anything, and I mean anything, is even close to resembling or infringing on their copyrighted stuff, you are DOD. You are dead, bro. You are dead. Dead. And nothing has happened. Now, I will say at the time of recording, there was supposed to be a mod pack that was going to come out for this game that basically made it look like Pokemon. Your character would look like Ash Ketchum, and then all of the pals would be turned into Pokemon, matching typing and stuff like that. Now, that got taken down with a DMCA claim and a copyright strike. There's a reason why, though. Remember, mods in themselves are not illegal. They realistically can't be taken down. Like, yes, a company can bully you into submission to take it down, but legally they can't do anything to you, because again, it's a mod unless you're messing around with copyrighted material and stuff like that. That's different. But the other, I'd say, negative thing that affected the person coming out with the mod pack was they locked it behind a paywall on Patreon. And when you're selling copyrighted material, yeah, you're pretty much game over, bro. Like, you already know what you were getting into when you made that decision. Let's be real here. You don't sell copyrighted material. That is a stupid idea. Let's just be realistic here. You don't sell copyrighted material because it's copywritten, bro. You can't just sell it. If you're going to put the mod out there for everyone to play, and yes, I understand the whole mod scene is a different thing because people put a lot of time and effort into this stuff, but let's be real. You can't put it behind a paywall because, you can't. That's just illegal. So you can get taken to court. But in terms of people saying Nintendo and the Pokemon Company are going to sue this company into oblivion, guys, they're clearly not. They have no ground to stand on. Now, keep in mind, I am not a lawyer, but if we're looking at precedents that have been set in the past, you have to think about this in the sense of the courtroom. Think about it. Nintendo takes this company to court. Say they're going to take them to court, copyright infringement, whatever it may be. This company could probably say things like, oh, this is parody. This is, none of this is truly one-to-one designs, because again, when it comes to infringing copyrighted material, it usually goes on the grounds that there is a one-for-one copy, especially when things like models or creatures. If it's a one-for-one, then it's a very, it's a pretty cut and dry case at that point. But in this case, they could just claim parody or something like that, and they could win. Would you want to imagine what would happen if Nintendo took this company to court and they lost? You want to imagine the precedent that would set in a legal standpoint? It would be catastrophic for the industry across the board. So there's one reason why Nintendo probably hasn't done it. The second reason is Nintendo probably also understands none of their stuff is being infringed on. None of the designs are being infringed on. Yes, they can take inspirations, but you have to remember that Nintendo does not own, or the Pokemon Company does not own the inspirations for a lot of these things. Like, yes, they own the specific creature. Like, for example, Cinderace, one of the Pokemon that exist. They own the copyright to Cinderace and its likeness. They don't own the ears. They don't own a humanoid rabbit. You get what I mean? Like, they don't own these things that they can claim that is an inspiration, because there's only so much you can do. Like, there's one pal in there called Anubis that is, based off the Egyptian god Anubis. You look at a Pokemon Lucario. Lucario is clearly heavily inspired by Anubis, and they look similar because they're based off the same thing. That is, that's where you start to blur the lines between what is okay, what is not okay, what is plagiarism, or what is just creative inspiration. So if we're looking at it from that standpoint, yes, clearly Nintendo is watching this game. They are clearly aware of the success that this game is having. Now, at the end of the day, is Nintendo worried? No. Let's be realistic here. They know they have Pokemon. Pokemon sells 20 million units by itself very easily. But I think this also leads into a conversation while we're on the topic of Pokemon and PalWorld, that it shows that a lot of people are hungry for a true next gen experience of Pokemon that is, updated graphics, running Unreal Engine 5, and people want that. They clearly want something that Nintendo has not been offering. Because let's be realistic here. Nintendo and the Pokemon Company could have easily offered something like this, but they chose not to. And yes, people can say it's because of the limitations of the hardware and things like that, which again also makes sense because the Switch is underpowered and needs a revision, which, let's be realistic here, we know the next Switch is coming out this year. But when we look at this objectively speaking, Nintendo fumbled the bag because they clearly could have offered something like this, but they chose not to or weren't able to. Because we have to look at this from two perspectives. They either could or they couldn't. And yes, some people could say this is the limitations of the hardware they're working with, but again, that's nor here nor there. At the end of the day, people saw how Scarlet and Violet came out. And while yes, I like Scarlet and Violet, I think it is one of the better Pokemon games that we have gotten in a while. Granted, my favorite is still Legends Arceus, let's be real here. But in terms of the mainline Pokemon games, yes, it was objectively one of my favorites that have come out in a very long time. But I also acknowledge it came out in a very buggy state, and it still is very buggy, and the Pokemon Company has not done anything to address these concerns with the game. And that is very jarring because they know that they're just going to make money off it regardless. Because let's be real, people will buy Pokemon regardless. That's just how it is, sadly. We'll just keep buying it, and it's bad. But this also shows that because Nintendo obviously keeps their IPs on their platform, that people on other platforms are hungry for this style of experience. So a company came in, created something similar to Pokemon, mixed it in with some other survival aspects, or in this case, a survival light, and made it I'd say an engaging loop that people really enjoy. And it's obviously selling well because the people are responding. The sales are increasing. The player counts are increasing. It's just showing that this market is clearly missing something, and these people clearly offered it, and they're reaping the rewards. That's just the nature of business. Is if you are offering something in a market that is clearly wanting something, you will get results. And that's what happened. You provide a product, a good, a service to an underserved community, and look what will happen. You get all of it, bro. And here we are. Now, here's where the other issue starts to come in. And this is around the big topic of AI and the impact of AI. And if we're being honest here, yes, there are some glaring concerns that people are having with AI. And again, we're just going to get this out of the way. Again, there is no evidence that AI was used in the development of this game. Yes, this company has made a game before that strictly focuses on showing image-based AI, and it's literally a game that uses AI where you're having to identify what is an AI image. And they clearly outlined, especially on Steam with the new policies that are on Steam, that if a game is made with AI, you specifically have to disclose that to let people know that this is an AI-based game, or this game has been made with some sort of AI, and you have to specifically disclose what is and what isn't AI. But clearly this game does not have anything, and there are people trying to use out of context interviews from the CEO of the company that made PalWorld and try to say that, oh, look, he's saying that they would have made this game with AI. Guys, you have to be honest and realistic here. If this game was made with AI and this company has already been transparent of disclosing these things in the past, do you not think that they wouldn't be transparent and disclose this right off the rip? You get what I'm saying? Like, this is where, yes, we do acknowledge that AI is a very controversial thing nowadays. Now, my opinion is going to be a little bit more different because, again, I'm not super familiar with a lot of the bigger picture that comes with AI and what are the purposes behind it. I feel like those conversations should be reserved with experts who have been working on this for a while now, because let's be real. There is a comment that has been made that I do firmly agree with, is that AI is like the genie in the bottle that once it's out, it's out there. You can't put it back in. It's like Pandora's box. Once you open it, you can't put it back in. Now, especially when it comes to creative media, things like, music, video games, movies, photography, videography, all of these things. Yeah, let's be realistic here. There are some concerns. But we also have to be honest that rather than trying to do this big push to prevent it, because let's be real, you're never going to stop AI. Let's just be realistic here. You can't stop it. Once it's out there, but you can't put regulations and laws in place to be able to protect the people who are still creating these things, to, you know, just better protect, to make sure that they are still being compensated for this, that they are still, you know, able to be protected by law. Not saying that they're going to stop AI from growing, but just make sure that the things that the AI are learning from, which would be us or whatever it's, you know, you're giving it, whatever task, whatever thing you're giving to it to learn from, that the people who made those things are being compensated for it. Now, again, this is a very novice opinion because I do not have a lot of experience with AI. This is something that is a constant evolving conversation that requires speaking with expert matters and subject experts, because let's be real, it's a rough conversation to have. But in terms of AI being used in PalWorld, again, there are people that will try to throw things around saying that, oh, this. Guys, there is no firm, hard evidence. Let's just be realistic here. All of it is just opinions, or people trying to sway public opinion by using out of context tweets, out of context interviews, and not showing you the full interview or full context. Because if you actually look at full contexts and things like that, you start to realize, oh, this is just someone snipping something from a conversation that makes it look bad and tries to justify their point. But when you read it as a whole, you realize they're talking about something wildly different and it was taken out of context. And of course, people are going to do what the internet does best, which is spread misinformation and just blow things out of proportion. Let's just be realistic here. That's the internet for you. But outside of that, do I recommend a game like PalWorld? I would say yes, and the only reason I would even recommend it is for the people that like a survival style video game like Ark, or games in that category where you're managing resources, you're managing your hunger bar, but at the same time you also want something similar to that monster catching game where you're catching monsters like Pokemon, or, you know, there's some other, I guess, other games that are currently on Steam, like Cassette Monsters or something. There's like a game on Steam that's also very similar to that monster gathering genre. And overall, I think it is a good game. Yes. Is it perfect? No, it is not perfect. There's clearly a lot of bugs. It's an early access game. Like, yesterday was my first time ever having a crash on the game. But outside of that, it's been a very smooth experience. I think it's well optimized. The fact that you can run it on a Steam Deck is also impressive, because it does hover around that 30 FPS mark, which again is still kind of rough, but that's also because of the limitations of the Steam Deck. And even same thing with like games like the Rogue Ally or Legion Go, you know, same thing. But overall, I think that this game is going to be something that a lot of people are going to be talking about, especially when we look at the conversation of video games for the year. That the surprise hit came out of nowhere at the beginning of the year, because let's be realistic here, guys. Nobody was expecting this game to be some big seller. People were probably expecting this to be like maybe 1 million copies at best, 2 million, and that's pretty much it. It's an early access game that people will buy into. They'll probably play it, then they'll eventually get a 1.0. But the fact that this game is an early access and blowing up online with over 1.8 million people playing it concurrently on Steam, we have over 6 million in sales in just a span of 4 days. Like, yeah, this is a big seller, and this is probably the most successful game this company has ever made. I highly applaud them, because again, they made a good game, because again, that's just how the market works. The market will respond if there is a want, if there is a need. And clearly these people are fulfilling a void that was in the market, that people wanted something like this for a long time, and now somebody finally delivers it with good quality, and here we are. Now, again, the game is not perfect, and this is the whole point of this thing being in early access. If they have time to develop, to add more to the game over time, and that's the whole point, is that the game will grow over time, and once we get to that official launch, hey, we'll see how the game truly is, because let's be real, it's an early access, and so far it's a good gameplay loop. Now, how they maintain that player base and how they maintain that player count is a different story. And this will all depend on updates, you know, how frequent they're putting out updates, the community engagement, things like that, and the quality of the updates being put out. Eventually to the point where we get to the 1.0 launch, and then we get to see the full game. But overall, I'm excited for the future of this game. but I'm also going to be wary and also acknowledge like, hey, these are some conversations people are having in the background, so let's just be aware of them going forward, which is the conversations with AI. If it ever comes out that this game was made with AI, hey, take it on the chin. Let's be real. Hey, it happens. And then we have a different conversation. Or, if Nintendo decides to take this company to court for putting out this game, then we'll see what happens. But at the time of this recording, there has been no confirmation that Nintendo will go after this game or the company legally. And there's also no hard, firm evidence that this game has any form of AI or plagiarism or anything like that. Like, yes, again, there are similarities, but there is no firm evidence that nobody can give a credible source of where this information is coming from. All this is just hearsay at this point, people just making up their own headcanon. That doesn't mean we should dismiss it, but that also means we need to be objective with holding people accountable with actual, firm, hard evidence. Not just hearsay, not just, oh, this looks similar, so it has to be. Like, no, guys. All of it is just opinions at the end of the day until there is actual firm facts. But let me know what you guys think. Are you guys playing PalWorld? Is this something you guys have been checking out recently? Is this something you guys might be interested in playing? Again, up until January 25th, this game will be discounted on Steam about like 10%. So, 10%, but hey, at the end of the day, it's discounted. And if you guys want to get it on Steam, you are able to buy it on Steam for $30. And then on console, you have to use Game Pass Ultimate, I believe, or you can actually buy it. But I think it's mostly locked behind Game Pass Ultimate if you want the true experience for it. So that's something you have to do. But outside of that, I don't really have anything else. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, whether you're watching this on YouTube or if you're on the podcast, listening to the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you like to listen to your podcast. Hey, leave a reply down below what you guys think. And that's all I got for you guys. So I hope you guys enjoy, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye, guys.
Hey there. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day and listening to today's episode. If you're interested in supporting the show, whether it be financially, clicking the follow button, or just sharing the episode, it all works for me, guys. Thank you guys so much for your time, and I love you guys to death.